final votes on their budget versions tonight, though those votes could slip to tomorrow. Back to you.
All right. Rich Edson in Washington. Thank you, Rich.
I want to bring in Republican Congressman Bill Shuster of Pennsylvania. Congressman, I hope you heard our reporters report they're coming out of D.C., but I first want to get your comment on the budget battle that's happening in D.C. today.
Well, this budget that the president has proposed and that Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid have embraced just taxes too much, it spends too much, and it borrows too much. We've got to get to reality here. The way out of this recession we're in is not by runaway spending. It's by cutting taxes on businesses and families in America. We need to do that, and that's the only way out of this, and history bears that out. In the 60s, President Kennedy cut taxes and got out of a recession. President Reagan did in the 80s, and even in the early 2000s, President Bush's tax cuts got us out of that recession. That's what we need to do.
All right, it's being called a budget battle, but I don't know if there's much of a battle going on unless you can get some people with D's behind their names to join you. Are you getting anybody?
Well, I don't believe there are anybody that I've heard of, or very few. The Blue Dogs, who, while we were in the majority, would stand up on the House floor night after night talking about being fiscally responsible, and yet most of those Blue Dogs are going to vote for this runaway spending budget that's going to add trillions and trillions of dollars to our children, our grandchildren, to their futures that they're going to have to pay back.
You know, you're a fifth-term congressman. I mean, at this point, this is kind of politics as usual, it seems. How do we, if the budget does go forward as is to the president's desk, what is the next thing that we can do to maybe find some bipartisanship in Washington?
Well, I think that we've gone to the president, we've talked to the Democratic leadership. They want to increase government spending. They have a thirst for government spending. They believe, their principles of their party, I believe, and they believe, is that Washington, the federal government, can do better. Huge increases in education. There's nobody in America that doesn't support funding education, but it shouldn't be done at the federal level. It should be done back home in the local school districts and in the state government. That's where we should increase and find the money to spend on education, not in Washington, because we are going to get a one-size-fits-all solution, and it's going to be what's good for Pennsylvania is good for Idaho, and is what's good for Vermont, and that's just not the case, and that's what happens when you have all this spending and it's being directed here in Washington.
Congressman, it's Greg Jarrett. You know, you Republicans were ripped by the Democrats because you didn't come up with an alternative budget. Now that you have, and Democrats likely haven't even read it, they're ripping you yet again for what's in it. How frustrating is it to be a Republican on Capitol Hill during this budget process, or for that matter, any legislation?
Well, it is frustrating. They have the votes. They make the schedule. They determine what the rules are and what the agenda is. And you're right, they are ripping us. But we've come forward, as we have on every major issue over the last 2 years. We've come forward with an alternative. And our budget spends less money. It makes the tax cuts that we passed into law in 2001 and 2003, it makes them permanent. And I think that's what the American people want. They want a federal government that's responsible and making sure that they get to keep more of their hard-earned dollars and not send it here to Washington and send it down a rat hole in many cases.
Well, you know, Congressman Bill Shuster, we're going to have to leave it there, but if you could start talking more about that death tax in D.C., I'd be very grateful for you.
Well, absolutely. It expires in just another year.
It's millions. It's millions. All right. Thank you so much, Congressman. Great to talk to you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Well, stocks are